I was sitting there watching TV. Hawk was playing Nebraska. It was a game approaching the fourth quarter. Without Reggie Bush and Lendale White, Hawk was doing poorly. I noticed my wife coming out of the kitchen. She had a sour expression on her face. It seems lately she always has a sour expression on her face. 2 months ago, our youngest just left for college, and for the first time in 18 years, we were alone together. I think that every time we're alone, her expression changes. My name is Bill Jackson, and I'm 44 years old. I live in San Bernardino County, California. My wife Sheila spent most of her adult life as a homemaker, raising our 3 children. About a year ago, she decided to return to work. During this time, I began to notice subtle changes in her attitude. The frequency of intimacy started to decrease slowly. I never attached much importance to it. I just thought it was normal after being married for 22 years. Ever since she started working, she signed up for a gym membership. She wanted to get herself in shape. I thought it was a great idea, so I also started regularly going to the gym. I needed to shed a few pounds. I had spent too much time sitting at a desk. I needed to do something to energize myself. I feel better exercising early in the morning before starting work. It seems I have more energy at this time of day. If I worked out in the evening, I was usually too tired to enjoy it. My wife was the complete opposite. She hated getting up early and either went to the gym during a long lunch break or went straight after work before coming home. I began to understand that our routine was making us strangers in our own home. We always participated in school and sports events for the kids, but now that the kids were gone, it became evident that we had very little in common. I could see us drifting apart into our own worlds. I tried my best to fix the situation, but with little success. I suggested going out for dinner, going to the movies, or taking a cruise, but nothing seemed to spark her interest. I knew my marriage was in trouble and divorce loomed on the horizon. It didn't take just a turning key to set it off. It was unpleasant waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing I couldn't stop the inevitable. Shelia's facial expression when I was around seemed to get sourer every week. Finally, one day I asked her if something was bothering her and if she wanted to talk about it. She turned to me, looked at me, and said, "I'm unhappy." When I asked why she wasn't happy, she shrugged and said she didn't know. I wasn't naive. I know that a good girl for one guy can be a bad girl for another. So, my wife might not be as innocent and true as in "till death do us part." I seriously doubted that her sexual attraction somehow diminished. Her loss of sexual desire towards me probably meant she either found someone else or was close and possibly even thought she married the wrong guy. Her depression from communicating with me could be caused by her temporary loss of pleasure from communicating with the guy she slept with. It's interesting how many kindred souls she's already lost in search of Mr. Right. She probably assumed that I didn't suspect the real possibility of her affair and her lack of interest in sex with me, believing she was a good girl in my eyes. I think she never knew me well enough to underestimate me like that. I knew I couldn't let her play me anymore. It was time to act. It was easy to understand. I hid several small voice-activated recorders throughout the house and under the seat of her car. I also installed a GPS in her car to always know where she was. It took just a few days to find out who she was meeting, where, and when. The guy's name was Bob Martin. He was married, had 2 children, and worked as a salesman in her office. I was not so much devastated as I was disgusted by her actions. If Sheila had told me, "Listen, Bill, this is no longer working. I don't love you, the kids are gone, and I want to find someone else to spend my life with," I would have been disappointed and hurt, but I would have respected her honesty and moved on without any animosity. But it's not what she did. She sneaked behind my back in search of a replacement, clinging to the security and lifestyle I provided. She made my life miserable because of her sour attitude. She distanced me from the marital duty of providing sexual intimacy, and she broke her marital vows because of her own selfish actions. No, I won't go quietly into the night. The punishment will correspond to the crime. Now I had to decide what that would be. Time was on my side, and I could unexpectedly strike on my terms and on my territory. A few days passed, and she had already met with him twice more. Cheating and getting excited should have been fun, but every good thing must come to an end someday. I ruled out murder. That would be too easy, and they would be dead without prolonged suffering. No, it had to be something that would become such a scandal that they could no longer continue their work or live in this city. I needed to come up with something that newspapers could cover for more than a day and turn them into a spectacle of society. I spent several days contemplating various courses of action and considering different scenarios. Finally, I understood what I was going to do. The next day, I told Sheila that I had a dental appointment scheduled and wouldn't be going to work today. I waited until my unsuspecting wife left for work and then approached her computer. I loaded her email file onto my laptop. Then I created a mailing list consisting of many employees from her company, her friends, colleagues, and family members. This way, with just a few keystrokes, I could send any file I wanted via email. I went to the bank and closed all joint accounts and credit cards. I took all the money and transferred it to accounts in the Cayman Islands. She would get a share of the house, so we would have an equal distribution. Then I retrieved hidden voice-activated recorders. Her one-sided conversation revealed to me that they were planning to meet at noon at Motel 6 to have sex all day. It was the opportunity I had been waiting for so long. I need something to quickly scare them and make them comply, so I packed my automatic Colt .45 in a small pouch. This should work. Then I threw some essential items and a bottle of extremely effective and fast-acting cherry-flavored sedative into a small bag. Then I headed to the motel. There was only one in town, and about half a block away was Starback. It was the perfect place to wait and observe the traffic. I brought out my laptop to monitor her car and waited. As it turned out, I didn't need the GPS. I saw her car pass by around 11:50 in the morning, so I went out and watched as she pulled into the motel parking lot. I grabbed the bag and my laptop and headed across the street to the motel. I saw her heading straight to room 6. I saw him letting her in. I gave them about 10 minutes. I entered the motel and approached the room. I knocked on the door and shouted, "This is the police. Open up, right now." I heard the door chain jingle and the door opened. As the door opened, I pushed it with my shoulder and the guy landed on his backside. He didn't expect someone to burst in like that. Sheila was lying naked on the bed and gasped when she saw me. I hit the guy over the head with my .45 and ordered him to lie face up on the bed, warning him that if he moved he would be dead. I opened the bag, took out a roll of duct tape, and threw it to Sheila. She was frantically fumbling with it. I ordered her to shut up unless she wanted me to shoot her too. I said, "You, scumbag, tape his hands and legs to the bedposts. Do it right now." I pointed the gun at her and told her that if she made a single sound, it would be the end for her too. When she finished tying up her lover, I told Sheila to lie on her back over him. Then I placed a couple of pillows under his legs so Sheila could rest her head in an elevated position. After that, I taped Sheila's legs to the bedpost. They were both terrified because they thought I was going to kill them. I took out a bottle of laxative. I had removed the label beforehand, so she had no idea what it was. I told her to drink it, and if she spat it out, she would regret it. She drank the bottle like a good girl, and I told her it was cherry-flavored sparkling water, so she didn't need to worry about anything. She seemed to relax. I instructed her to lean back on 2 pillows. I wanted her head and chest to be elevated above her stomach. Then I finished taping her hands to the bedposts. I pulled out my smartphone and took a couple of photos of the lovely couple. Then I retrieved my laptop from my bag and uploaded the photos to it. I have satellite connectivity on my laptop, so I can access the internet from almost anywhere. Then I walked over and grabbed her panties from the floor, stuffed them into her lover's mouth, and taped his mouth shut. I grabbed his boxers, went to my wife, stuffed them into her mouth, and taped her mouth shut as well. Next, I went into the bathroom, took a large glass of water, and sat in the chair. I quickly drank the water. I was thirsty. Well, I checked the time and figured I had about 10 more minutes. I turned on the TV and couldn't believe my luck. The Jerry Springer Show was on, and they had 2 fugitives fighting over some toothless skinny guy. Unbelievable. Just at that moment, I heard my wife starting to moan in her boxer shorts. She began wriggling back and forth and seemed to be experiencing some discomfort. And then it happened. It was an epic explosion. Excrement burst out of her, landing directly on her lover's face. I told myself, this woman must not have relieved herself in a couple of days. I told her it was really disgusting and that she should visit the bathroom more often. I took a couple more pictures. I had what I needed. I uploaded the photos to my laptop, opened my email, attached 4 photos to the email, set the subject as "Cheaters Caught in the Act," attached the mailing list, and hit the "Send" button. Maybe it was a cruel and unusual punishment, or maybe not. I think it depends on who's the judge. Then I packed up my laptop and other essentials. I said, "Hasta la vista, sweetheart, and good luck with your life. You messed things up for me in our marriage, so I thought Bob should also experience what it's like to be unclean. By the way, you're now publicly messing up, so enjoy, live, and work in this city." Shortly before flying to the Cayman Islands, I took out my mobile phone, called the motel, and told the clerk that there was a couple in room 6 who urgently needed his assistance. I said to him, "I think the excrement has hit the fan. I wonder if Sheila and Bob continued this affair? Well, if so, it must be true love. But if I know her, it won't be long before she messes things up for him again." Life goes on. Story 2. The joys of post-coital sleep. It was what allowed me to cuff my wife's hand to our custom-made, handcrafted ash wood headboard. She didn't wake up immediately. She cautiously opened her eyes, then screamed. Her scream woke her lover, Bob Simmons, who quickly discovered that his wrist was also handcuffed. Bob's scream was slightly more masculine as he fell off the bed, twisting his arm and cutting his wrist. He scrambled back onto the bed, and the words he was about to say got stuck in his throat. I suppose that, upon waking up, the husband of your lover, standing at the foot of the bed with a large caliber revolver pointed at you, will make it clear. "Did you sleep well, you guys?" I asked. "Oh my God, Jerry, it's not what it looks like," my wife sobbed. "Well, let's figure out what it looks like," I said. "You are lying in our marital bed, and his juice is drying on your legs, trying to convince me that you are a faithful little wife? Don't do anything stupid," Bob croaked. "There's no need to go to jail over an unfaithful wife." His eyes were still fixed on the .35 Magnum in my hands. That made sense, as I was shaking a little from rage and sorrow. "And here is the man for whom you decided to leave me. If you were still my wife, I would have to defend your honor, but since it doesn't seem to matter much right now, I really don't care." "It's interesting that he still holds you in such high regard," I replied. Barb ignored both of our comments. "Jerry, please, put the revolver down and let's talk about this. This fool isn't worth going to prison for," she pleaded. "Wow, I think a rose has truly bloomed in this relationship, hasn't it? He calls you names, and you call him names. I thought you would treat him with more respect. After all, he is the one you thought was worth breaking us up for," I replied sadly. "Jerry, we're not breaking up. I really messed up, but we can get through this. I'll fix everything, I promise," she sobbed. "How do you plan to do that? Are you going to go back in time and not sleep with him? Because that's the only way I can have anything to do with you in the future. I loved you so much that my life would be hell if this happened. I don't want to go back to that place, but if the alternative is living with an unfaithful woman, what options do I have?" I asked. I pressed the revolver to my temple. "Maybe it would be easier just to pull the trigger like this. I'd end the pain, and you'd be free to sleep with whoever you want." "Jerry, no," she screamed. "Do it," he shouted. I slowly lowered the revolver. An idea struck me. I opened the revolver's cylinder and pressed the plunger to release the 6 bullets. They fell to the floor, and I bent down to pick one up. I heard a grunt as that idiot tried and failed to break the headboard to which he was attached. What a loser. He calmed down when I picked up the lone bullet. The look of horror on Barb's face was clear. This is a .35 Magnum bullet, which weighs 125 grams. When the bullet leaves the barrel of this revolver, it travels at a speed of 1,500 feet per second. When it hits something solid, it flattens and nearly triples the impact area it can damage. Even if you survive the hit, it will undoubtedly create a wound that will make you bleed out, I said, making sure I had their attention. I inserted the bullet into the cylinder. "Barb, you know how much I loved gambling before we met. In fact, it almost ruined us in the first few years of our marriage. I stopped for you. Don't get me wrong, I benefited from stopping, but I only had the strength to quit because I loved you so much," I said sadly. I tilted the revolver back slightly and spun the cylinder. As it continued to spin, I flicked my wrist and snapped the cylinder back into the revolver. Since I really don't know what to do, I'll let chance decide. "The finger of fate, if you will," I said. I slowly aimed the revolver at her lover. "Since Bob is our honored guest here, I feel I should start with him. Would you like me to record anything for your wife or daughters, Bob?" I asked. "It will be very lonely in that house at 726 Maple Lane if you end up eating this bullet, Bob. Your wife Allison and your twin daughters Zoe and Chloe will be quite devastated when they receive the package my investigator sent them. I considered sending a few less pornographic photos, but I decided your girls need to know exactly what you were doing late at the office." I also took the liberty of including pictures of your two other mistresses. Just so she gets the full picture. I didn't think he could get any whiter, but as I aimed the revolver at him, he grew even paler. I cocked the hammer back. He closed his eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. I thought he would faint, but he came to his senses. Of course, the sheet around him started to turn yellow as he wet himself. You survived this round. Maybe you'll still get to see your pretty daughters, I calmly replied. I aimed the revolver at my wife. What about you, Barb? Are you ready to meet your maker? You went to church last Sunday, so I assume you confessed your sins. If you die today without the chance to confess, will you go to heaven or to hell? Unless things have changed. Adultery is still considered a sin in your religion, right? I asked her. Yes, she whispered with her eyes closed. Sorry, what did you say? I asked her. Yes, Jerry, adultery is a sin. It is a sin against your spouse, and it is a sin against God. I have never confessed what I did. I will go to hell if this bullet hits me, she said. Well then, let's see if your God wants you to live, I replied, cocking the hammer back. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. She sobbed as I pointed the revolver at my temple again. I was in such a dark place before you came into my life, Barb, I said to her. The only time I ever felt even remotely good was when I was winning that series. It was never about the money. It was all about the thrill. I remember thinking about how kind and gentle you were when you treated my hands that night in the emergency room. Gino's thugs really did a number on me. I told myself that if I had a caring woman like you in my life, I wouldn't need to gamble. Did I ever tell you that the memory of your hands bandaging mine made me stop? That night, I settled my debts with Gino and have never gambled since. I know that life without you would be hell. You are my support. If this bullet hits me, my suffering will end. You won't be able to hurt me anymore. I almost wanted to happen, I said quietly to her. She sobbed as I pulled the trigger again. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. My wife screamed. Damn it, Bob cursed. I aimed the revolver at her lover. Since these might very well be your last moments on Earth, Bob, please tell me, why do you chase after married women? I really don't understand it. Your wife is attractive, and your daughters seem charming. Why? I asked. Please, man, don't kill me, he begged. I shrugged and cocked the hammer back with my thumb. He suddenly burst into tears. It's all about the chase, finding what excites them, and then playing it out. Your wife was just a little unsatisfied with you. In any marriage, even a good one, there are rough patches and mutual grievances. All I had to do was highlight how useful and sexual she was, and she passionately desired me. Anyway, this was supposed to be the last time. Once I sleep with another man's wife in his bed, the game is over and I win, he sobbed. This guy clearly had some issues. He looked pretty pathetic lying on those dirty sheets. I should have taken a picture, but I didn't want any compromising evidence. I heard him groan as he tried to break the headboard again. I looked him in the eyes. I pulled the trigger. Click. The hammer fell on an empty chamber. The idiot passed out. I raised the revolver and pointed it at my wife. Well, it's either you or me. I'm a bit sad that your lover dodged the bullet. I love you, Barb. I almost hope it's not you. Everything would be so much cleaner if I came home, caught you two in bed, and then couldn't take it and ended my own life. You would be alive, I wouldn't have to deal with murder, all this pain would be gone, and you'd be free to sleep with whoever you damn well please, I said to her sadly. She tried to remain calm. At that moment, we were both hanging by a thread. Jerry, please stop this. You've made your point. Bob passed out from fear, sitting in his own urine. You've won. Put the revolver down, and we can convince Bob not to press charges. You haven't done anything that can't be fixed. I want to stay with you, but if you put the revolver down, I promise to sign any divorce papers you present to me. If I can convince you to keep me, I will spend every day atoning for my sins. Please, don't do this, Jerry, she pleaded. Barb, I don't think I'm Jerry anymore. When I found out what you were doing, I got so angry, and then discovering you did it in my bed. Well, something inside me died. I think that right now, I'm the finger of fate. Let's see if your time has come. I suppose I should explain. You see, as a gambler, I got pretty good with my fingers. Gino mangled my left hand, but my right was still quite skillful. Card tricks, shuffling chips, and flipping coins all develop your dexterity. So, removing a bullet from the revolver cylinder isn't that difficult, especially when your audience is focused on the barrel. Tilting the revolver back to spin the cylinder gave me enough cover to take the bullet out and slip it into my palm. After that, it was all a game. Why? Because I wanted them to feel fear and pain, but I wasn't ready for the severe consequences of hurting these idiots. Let's get back to our story. I laughed so hard when I saw the expression on my wife's face. What, bitch? Did you really think I'd go to jail for the two of you? Ha! I managed to choke out, trying to catch my breath. Still laughing, I bent down and picked up all 6 bullets from the floor. This time, I loaded the revolver for real. No sense in taking any chances. I threw the handcuff key to my wife. She was sobbing and seemed to be slightly out of breath. Idiot Bob was coming too. Barb was still sobbing and made no move to take the key. I noticed Bob focused on the key but kept glancing at me, wondering what to do. Take the key, idiot, grab your clothes, and get out of here, I told him. Consider this a lesson, Bob. Right now, you're allowed to live, but if I hear anything from the cops about today, I will kill you and your family in the most painful way possible. If you keep your mouth shut, it will save not only you but also your wife and kids. I told him in the most serious tone. Would I actually do it? Hell no. But I hoped Bob thought I was serious, otherwise I could end up in jail for more than a few years. When all was said and done, Bob didn't utter a word about what happened. Barb was devastated but signed the divorce papers without any complaints. It helped that it was a pretty fair deal in terms of money. The only things I asked for were my grandmother's wedding ring and for her to take back her maiden name. She moved to Grand Rapids and sends me birthday greetings on social media. It doesn't seem like she's dating, but I don't check her social media page. I wasn't joking when I said I loved her. I still sometimes get furious about what she did to me. But I'm moving on. The good days are starting to outnumber the bad, and I've even made a few friends with benefits. Bob got divorced, and the last I heard about him is that he lives in a terrible one-bedroom apartment, paying alimony and child support, which almost broke him. I sent him one instant message before he blocked me. I told him that if he wants to end it all, he can borrow my revolver.
Thank you for being with us and listening until the end. If you found it interesting, please subscribe, give us a like, and leave your comments.